right, call to order, city council, county regular meeting, San Francisco. Stand for pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Becker. Here. Howard.
Here.
Chloe. Here. Angus.
Here.
Deeds.
Here.
Ganavati.
Here.
Ilmanen. Here.
You know, motion for approval of agenda, please.
Make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
All right, public comment, 3-minute public comment, please step up to the podium, name and address, and, no public comment today? No? All right, close public comment. Number 6, unfinished business, no unfinished business. Moving on to number 7, city council orientation. We haven't met yet, but,
I'm Bill Nordine.
Bill Nordine.
I'm an attorney with Jeremy Pickens. You've met Jeremy,
yes,
and I'm his partner, so he's busy tonight, so he asked me to fill in and go over a couple of things for the orientation. I think most of you, I understand, have been here for multiple years. Tracy isn't, but she's been in other things, right? And I forgot your name, sorry.
Amanda.
Amanda, you're new, right? So we'll go over a couple of quick things. You have one meeting a month, and then you can have special meetings. Special meetings can be called on written request of the mayor, the city manager, or any 3 council members. So if 3 council members want to have a special meeting, you can request that. It needs to be at least, it says 6 hours notice to each of the other city council members that you're going to have a special meeting. It has to be posted at least 18 hours according to statute. So those are special meetings, and use them as you see fit. All the special, regular special meetings are open to the public, so we don't do things in closed session, although we'll get to that at the end. There are some special reasons you can go into closed session. The city manager prepares the agenda. You work with a consent agenda, which means that you put things on a consent agenda and you can pass them quickly unless somebody has any questions. Always remember that if you have a question on something on a consent agenda, you can ask that be pulled off or that you can address it independently. A quorum is 4 of the 7. You have something on closed session, but I'll get to that in a minute when we go to the Open Meetings Act. You follow Robert's rules of order. You have an obligation to vote, and that's important because sometimes you'll have issues that are unpopular or contentious, and you may not want to vote, but you have to vote unless you are in conflict. So if you have a conflict, you need to disclose that, and that's the only reason you don't have to vote. It's interesting that your bylaws here, or your rules of procedure, say that if there's a controversy about whether there's a conflict, the city attorney gets to determine that. That's kind of an interesting twist, but yeah, so just realize you do have to vote. It's not always pleasant, but that's why you're an elected official, so you have that responsibility. And by the way, stop me if you have any questions as we go through this. If anybody has a question, let me know. You need to comply with all the laws of the United States, the state of Michigan, and the city of Negaunee. Professional and personal conduct with the public, you need to avoid improprieties. Don't argue with the public. If there's a public comment, technically speaking, you're not supposed to go back and forth. Public comment's supposed to be for the public to talk to the board and give their thoughts. You shouldn't be going back and forth. Some boards do, and to tell you the truth, when I'm on boards, I like to answer questions if I can, but you're technically speaking, legally speaking, you're not supposed to do that. So try to avoid it as best you can, because it doesn't always, it's not always productive. Make sure that you're not improperly influenced by anyone in the public or by the other commissioners or other board members.
Okay, say someone does kind of, go back and forth with a member of the public, could someone on council call a point of order?
Absolutely,
Right? Okay.
absolutely. So if you're sitting there and you're going back and forth and it's looking like it's taking a bad turn, anyone can say point of order and the chair can stop that from occurring.
Okay.
Realize that this isn't a board with, this isn't a meeting with the public. This isn't you can have those kinds of meetings, you know, on different subjects and have, hearings, but this is a meeting of the board, of you all to talk to each other, because of the Open Meetings Act, you can't talk outside of this much, anyway, and so this is your time to talk. The public is not part of that conversation, although they certainly can have their input and listen to what's going on.
It's a business meeting.
It's a business meeting, yeah, that's right, and the public's just watching. You need to serve with honesty, impartiality, diligence, efficiency, and courtesy. Make sure you do that. We try to avoid open meetings violations, so make sure you get it on the agenda, it says, and that's a good point. I'll tell you my experience with the open, and I've been doing this a long time, because I got on the county board, I was on the Forsyth Township board from 96 to 2000, and I got on the, Marquette County board in 2000, so it was a long time ago. And I'll tell you my experience with Jerry Corkin, which I thank the world, Jerry Corkin, bless his soul. And, but when I first got on the board, we had 9 commissioners, and he would take 3 of us in the back room and talk on a subject, and he'd take 3 others and talk on a subject, because he thought that was not a quorum. And then we had this case called the Bonnie Hoff case, and some of you may remember this. There was a lawsuit in the city of Marquette, and it talked about that very issue. And the court came out and said, wait a second, you're not allowed to do that, because it's not that you can talk in a sub-quorum, but if you talk to 2 here and 2 there and 2 there, and together in the aggregate, it's more than 4, you violated the Open Meetings Act. So you have to be very careful of that. It makes it hard sometimes, because you all wanna talk to each other about getting things done and being efficient, but understand that that's what the meetings are for. You need to talk in front of the public so they know what's going on and be very open, to what's happening. So that was it was right after the Bonnie Hoff, and we came back and said, wait a second, we're not allowed to do that anymore. So, everyone, a lot of municipalities misunderstand that, but I hope you understand that. If you have any questions, let me know.
I
Yes.
have a question, so if we were to like, you know, think of an issue that we wanted to bring up and we emailed each board member individually,
You're not allowed to do it.
you're not allowed to?
No,
Okay.
so email count it's the same as the conversation. So if you emailed 2 commissioners and said, hey, I really think we should go and put more money into the Jim Thomas thing over there, which is my uncle, by the way.
Okay.
But, and then you get their feeling, and then you email 2 others, right?
Yeah,
No, you can't do that.
okay,
You're not allowed to do that. If you wanna talk about it, you need to have a meeting.
okay,
So, and don't be afraid to have special meetings. You know, special meetings are for that, you say you wanted to, improve the park or something, say, I'd like to call a special meeting and talk about it, that's the place to talk about it. It should not be discussed in texts or in conversations, with more than 4 commissioners, or 4 members.
okay. Yeah, the rules weren't really clear about that, like,
Yeah, it's
You
a
know,
tough one.
that we can't all be together, I figured we couldn't all, like, get together and talk about
No,
something.
can't
but-
text it. The Bonnie Hoff case that was in the city of Marquette was all about texting and emails. That's all it was about, texting and emails.
Oh, okay,
And that's when they said it was a violation, because they were doing that same thing, talk to a couple here, talk to a couple there, and in the aggregate, it was more than a quorum.
okay,
And sometimes we have get-togethers like our employee picnic or other events like that. We just remind everybody and our employees that you're not allowed to discuss city activities with council members, because it could become a violation of the Meetings
Okay.
Act, so. But you can be all in the same room. There are circumstances where you all might go to Walmart
right,
and you're
yeah,
all there, but you're just not allowed to talk about city business.
Yeah. okay,
Right. And you can talk to the employees, it's the board members you can't talk to, you know. And you can talk to the attorney. So for instance, if you had an issue and I needed to, or Jeremy needed to take like what we call a straw poll to see how people are feeling, he can talk to all of you, because he's not a board member, and I'm not a board member. It's board members that can't be doing that. You know, because you all make the decisions, you guys are the legislators, and you make the decisions. Okay?
okay,
There's also, on top of that, correct me if I'm wrong, text, email communication between board members is always open to the public, correct?
You mean it could be FOIA, don't you mean? Yes, absolutely. So if somebody has an issue and they think you're doing that, again, back to the Bonnie Hoff, that's what happened there, they FOIA'd it and found out, yeah, there was emails and texts and things going back and forth. That is FOIAble material, yes. It's not, unless it's with an attorney. Now, if you're communicating with the attorney, you got attorney-client privilege, but amongst yourselves, no privilege. Okay? So that's a toughie, because you don't wanna, you don't wanna get caught in that whipsaw.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on. Gifts and favors. Basically, you're not allowed to take anything from anybody, so if somebody says, hey, I'd like to take you to lunch and let's go talk about something we should do, with the city, you really can't do that. If you go to lunch, everybody pays their own, that's the way you should be doing that. It's a touchy deal sometimes, you shouldn't let people give you gifts. If Cliffs comes in and drops off a box of steaks at your house, no, you can't do that, don't be doing that, to give them back to him. So, no, you're not allowed to do that. So,
I do not have contractor hats. That's a vicious number.
Do not solicit or accept gifts, do not take special advantages of services or opportunity for gain. So if you realize that, you're about to contract something out and then you go find, you're involved in a company with somebody and you go bid it and you get to take up that, before everybody else gets a chance, that's not allowed. So don't take advantage of your position. So that's the main thing. They're pretty basic rules, but you'd be surprised how sometimes you do something and you're like, oh, I didn't think that was wrong, and it was. So, and it's our job, our law firm, to keep you guys out of trouble, so. City council members shall respect and preserve confidentiality, and what that means is that, when you get your packet, that's not necessarily open to the public. You're gonna have some information, generally it can be, but there's gonna be some information sometimes that's not. It could be that somebody, some corporation wants to do something and you have that information about that corporation, and that's not releasable to the public. It may prejudice their standing against other companies, so keep everything confidential. Okay. Ethics. State laws have ethics, so here's the ethics according to Act 196, which is a local government official shall not divulge confidential information we just spoke about, represent his or her opinion as that of the local government. So don't write a letter to someone and say, hey, we wanna hire you to do something, and then on the bottom put your name and the city of Negaunee. You can't do that, because that makes it look like you're representing the city of Negaunee. And the only one that should be doing that is the chair or the city manager, after there's been a vote, a proper vote at a board meeting. So try not to represent that happens sometimes. Using governmental personnel, property, or funds for personal gain or benefit. Everything that you have as far as personal property of the city and funds are for the sake of the city, not your own. Again, it says don't solicit or accept gifts, we talked about that. Don't engage in a business transaction that you may profit from because when you have confidential information, we spoke on that a bit. Do not engage or accept employment or render services for a public or private industry that is in conflict with your duties. Do not participate in the negotiation or execution of contracts unless you are doing it as part of this board activity. So that pretty much covers that. Anybody have any questions on ethics? The last one, we talked about the Open Meetings Act. That's the last thing I want to touch on. I explained what it was. I think it was a pretty good example because we had that Bonnie Hoff case. That was a big case. It was a big case for the state of Michigan. Went up to the Court of Appeals and back. And then the only other one I have is that sometimes, I said everything has to be done in the public, but sometimes you are entitled to have closed sessions. There's very limited reasons, and I'll go through them because there's only 6 of them. The first one is that you're allowed to have a closed session to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining of an employee, but only if the named person asks to go into closed session. So they have to ask for that, otherwise you can't do it. You're allowed to go into closed session for strategy and negotiations when negotiating a collective bargaining agreement. If either party requests, so you can request your own, you're allowed to go into closed session. To consider the purchase or lease of real property up until the time you actually do it, and then that's a public, it has to be done in public. So obviously if you're negotiating to buy property, you don't want to be negotiating against yourself in open session and they're listening to what you want to, how much money you want to, the maximum you want to bid for the property. That wouldn't work, right? To consult with an attorney regarding a settlement strategy of any pending litigation. That means you have to have litigation. It has to be a lawsuit that's in court. It can't be somebody threatening litigation. It's pending litigation. Review and consider the contents of an application for employment. So you're allowed to do that in closed session if the candidate requests that it be remain confidential. So what that is that Say somebody applies for a job here, say Nate leaves, and somebody's applying for a job, and maybe it's the administrator from Marquette County, and he doesn't want Marquette County to realize he's applying for another job. So you're allowed to do that in closed session, but when you do hire somebody, it has to be done in open session. And then the very last one, and this is a touchy issue, is that you're allowed to go into closed session for material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute. And the reason I say that's touchy is because tricky attorneys use that as this giant loophole to bypass the Open Meetings Act by saying, okay, if you wanna go into closed session, the attorney will write you a legal opinion. And a legal opinion is an attorney-client privileged document, you're allowed to go in closed session and talk about it. So a lot of municipal attorneys use that as this giant loophole. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you should limit that, and there's been cases going bouncing around about that, because you don't wanna bypass the general idea of the Open Meetings Act, which is, it's called the Sunshine Law, to make sure that the public knows what's going on. But that's the big open-ended exception. Any questions on closed sessions?
Are you gonna cover penalties of violation
Well, I didn't see it.
of the Meetings Act?
Well, the penalties of Open Meetings Act is that they can get paid, I don't have it in front of me, but they can reverse whatever action occurred if you violate the Open Meetings Act, and they can get attorney fees, which sometimes can be very significant. Not local attorneys, we don't get paid that much, but. And there's a penalty, and I forget how much it is offhand, but there is a penal fine that can go with that too, so. The biggest thing about violating the Open Meetings Act is they can reverse the action you took, and they can get attorney fees for the person that's successful in challenging it. Those are two big things.
And correct me if I'm wrong, is the violation on the individuals who violated it, not necessarily the city?
It's on the individuals, absolutely, absolutely. So you be very careful, because that could, you could be personally liable for that when you violate the Open Meetings Act. All right? Good? Anything? Good, Jeremy said not to take too long, it wasn't too bad, right?
We don't have to, we can move on from there without any acceptance or anything from that.
Oh, yeah, this is,
That was just information.
All right, moving on, 7.2, water rate increase. A little background here.
City staff received correspondence from Negaunee-Ishpeming Water Authority regarding a budget update / surcharge increases. See attached letter from NIWA. Recent price increases, cost to upgrade the plant, increased operation costs, and a special project fund for the new Teal Lake well project has caused the NIWA board to increase their 2025 water rates. The increased rate for the Teal Lake well project is anticipated to last 4 years. $2.47 per 1,000 gallons base rate, $1.25 per 1,000 gallons SPF rate, is at $3.72 per 1,000 gallons. Due to this increase, city staff is recommending the following 15.97% increase to the water readiness to serve charge for the remainder of this year. Residents will see a $3.38 month increase on their bills. Meter size, there's a table here if you'd like me to read it, Mr. Mayor, or I can
I don't think that's necessary. We all have 3/4 inch, 5/8 inch residential, correct?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, so obviously this increase came to a surprise to us all. And the fact remains that no matter what the increase is, us and the city of Ishpeming residents, we pay for those bills, so it's not like a third party's paying for it. All this gets paid by the users, so we have to pass this cost along either in this monthly fee or we draw down our fund balance. If we draw down our fund balance, this project is, the payment cycle for this is to last 4 years. That's about $100,000 a year. That puts us in a worse position in case something does happen where we have to take an emergency action on our system to make repairs. So paying as we go is probably the best option. One thing I would like to see in this motion, if possible, if somebody's willing to entertain that, would be that this surcharge of the $3.38 per month after the 4-year cycle would roll off. So it'd have a time frame of which we would collect. The rest of it this year, and then 36 more months after this year. Reducing the rate down a little bit. Of course, we may have to raise rates in between then, but I'd like to see this charge eventually roll off. We did increase already slightly to cover our costs, but again, this is gonna be a $100,000 increase to us overall. So what we should expect after this 4-year cycle, you should see a decrease in the bill. I don't wanna say how much that could be, because we have no idea what the costs will be as they continue for 4 years, and then that bond that gets paid back, or loans that get paid back from NIWA, drop off our bill. So that's all I have. If there's any questions, Mr. Mayor, we try to answer the best I can.
All right, well, let's entertain a motion first, correct? Entertain a motion, and we can ask questions after.
I'll make a motion to, what do I read?
Bottom, you'll say increase the
Okay,
water
do the
rates.
increase, the staff has recommended the following 15.97% increase to water rate as a surcharge. For the remainder of this year, residents will receive a $3.38 month increase in their bills.
Are you willing to put the 4-year cap on that as well?
It's a full year cap on it.
That's
I forgot to write it down.
all right.
I'll second.
Dave, motion is now second. With roll off after 4 years.
Eclipse roll off.
All right, any discussion? Dave?
Well, granted, yes, people like to see rates going up, people don't like to see that, but just remembering back to the water tower, when we had that emergency meeting to have those valves replaced, as I understand, that dollar amount will be digging into that amount of money, for which, if we wouldn't do this raise, it would be digging into that fund that would possibly do to fix those valves, such, would that be right, Nate? Ballpark figure?
Mr. Mayor, if I remember correctly, I don't remember if all that money got paid out of the specialized fund where we collect rent, or if some of that money came out of the capital improvements or fund balance. I just don't recall that, but it would regardless, would be eating into some type of fund that could be used for repairs, yes.
Matt?
Yeah, I was looking through and I couldn't find any information on the Teal Lake Well project. Is that something that is going to be, you said it'll be completed in 4 years? Is that something that's gonna eventually save us money?
Mr. Mayor, the Teal Lake Water, or excuse me, the Teal Lake Well project is a project of the NIWA board, not the city of Negaunee. So we just purchase our water from NIWA. They are responsible for creating water, producing water. So that'd be a better question for them. From my understanding, they do have their funding mechanisms in place. I assume they're gonna start as early as this year as building that. It shouldn't take 4 years for them to build, but I think the payoff on the part that we're talking about should be taken care of within 4 years.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, one other clarification then maybe, Mr. City Manager, we have representation on the NIWA board, right? We appoint someone to that board. I mean, these all seem like costs that are not unanticipated, right? These are things that have been planned for some amount of time. So I'm dismayed that we're finding out about them and need to immediately pass an increase in taxes on our citizens. So I'm dismayed that we're just finding out about this. Why is that communication so poor?
Good question. We did have a meeting, Mr. Mayor, with them. They were looking for money. And I did state to them, I go, if you're going to request money from us or request us to pay more, the best course of action would be to come to each council, give a presentation on your project, explain what you need, how you're going to fund it, and what the anticipated cost would be. That advice wasn't heeded. So here we are, and we're on the hook for it, unfortunately. So, I mean, regardless of that, we would still be on the hook, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more information, you know, a couple years out. Like when we even do projects for ourselves, we estimate projects in capital improvement plans. So, I mean, one could also say, well, we talked about capital improvement plans and the thing, but if we're the only two customers, you only have two people you have to really communicate to, the city of Ishpeming, the city of Negaunee. So, I mean, I guess I would always encourage anybody who's doing major projects like this, other customers, to kind of do a little bit more communication. I don't wanna create a blame game, but that would have been helpful in my opinion, so.
And one other follow-up, so that I understand. The rate increase that the city is recommending, this 15.9% increase,
Mhm.
that is in addition to the NIWA rate going up to $3.72 per 1,000 gallons. Is that correct? Consumers will be paying both the increase in that ready-to-serve fee and this new fee at $3.72 per 1,000?
No, my understanding is we already had increased our rates because we knew that we were gonna have increased rates over time. So that covers about $33,000 worth of that 100,000. This $3.38 per month increase, which equates to about $40 a year per user, is to close that gap of that 70% gap there. So, I hope that answers your question. I may not be answering it.
Okay. I'm not sure that it does either, but I don't know that we have the answer then.
Yeah, so the rates they increased was 247 and 125 to 372, which, and Brian's here too. Brian, if you have any information to, Mr. Mayor's okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. So the residents, they don't pay that NIWA fee, we pay that fee. So this increase is to basically pass that fee through to the residents directly. Well, and businesses as well, but we just use the resident term because that's the majority of our customers.
Understood, yeah. So the $3.38 increase to Negaunee citizens, Negaunee residents makes up for the majority of the $3.72 that the city is gonna be charged, I see.
Yeah, I basically just estimated based on our usage per month, what that increase is gonna cost us and then pass that through. It's not an exact science, but it's the best we can do.
Yeah, understood, thank you.
Any further comments? My only comment, and I guess just my lack of knowledge, but when I read this, the city of Negaunee uses 280,000 gallons of water per day. When I read that, I was just, my mind was blown. 520,000 for the city of Ishpeming. I just couldn't believe those numbers, but, you know, 338 or 372 per gallon, that's a decent amount of money per day, so.
One thing I'll note to that, Mr. Mayor, some of that could be leakage as well.
Right.
And there's probably quite a lot of leakage, and probably more so at Ishpeming than there is in Negaunee right now. They're fixing a lot of their pipes right now, so you'll see decreases in that over time, which will save money, but hopefully that doesn't negatively affect the cost to doing business with Iowa, because sometimes when you're producing less, you have to charge more. So.
Right. Well, I'm not gonna stand in the shower as long anymore. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. We're gonna do a roll call vote for this one, Dave.
Becker?
Yes, reluctantly.
Howard? Nay. Flowey?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Dietz?
Yes.
Ganavati?
Yes.
Ilmanen?
Yes. All right, moving on, 7.3, Vista AV Consultant, RFP. Background, Dave?
The Planning and Zoning Department recently issued a request for proposal for an audio and visual consultant for the Vista Theater project. The consultant will work with the Planning and Zoning Department and Northern Design Works to develop plans in regards to all audio and visual components for the Vista Theater revitalization. The city received 6 proposals from a variety of world-class consultants. R. Blaine Consulting, $58 an hour, HAV Design, $195 an hour, ARUP, $515 an hour, Charcoal Blue, $350 an hour, Stages, $325 per hour, NV5 Consultants, $250 an hour. Recommendation, the Planning and Zoning Department and Northern Design Works have recommended R. Blaine Consulting LLC in the amount of $58 for a total of $26,548, with monies being paid for from the proceeds of the Vista grant.
Mr. City Manager, any further information?
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna defer to Dave Nelson from Planning and Zoning. He's a point on this right now. Any
Any
questions?
further information you might have to share this?
Yeah, so I mean, like we got great responses. Obviously, you can see the difference in the hourly, right? So some of these people do projects such as like the Met Opera House or, you know, the Sphere in Vegas. And they're based in various locations. Some of the higher level ones were based out of New York City. R.L. Blaine is actually based out of Michigan. And so when you equate also travel costs into there as well, plus the low hourly, really this was me reaching out to all of these different organizations for the past year, letting them know, you know, that we were working on the Vista and that an RFP would be coming out. And then I got these responses. Obviously the city has a financial obligation to basically follow what our charter says to, you know, do the lowest bidder. And that's why R.L. Blaine was recommended. And he has all of the qualifications that we're looking for. He has also, he's working on the Sioux Theater as well over in Sault Ste. Marie. So it's just the best fit and the best cost. So truthfully, I truthfully think we got lucky by finding a consultant that was willing to do it at $58 an hour, as the typical going rate is 100 plus, as you can see with the rates that are so highly varying.
Dave, could you go a little bit into what work will be before?
So they're gonna go through and basically any audio and visual component of a theater. And that's everything, and including review of the electrical schematic of the theater itself. So all of the stage lights and sound, all of the, you know, the projector, all of the entryway kind of components that you need when people are walking into a theater. Basically all the guts of a theater, right? Like myself and Rich Uren from Northern Design Works aren't, you know, we're not masters in that. We need somebody that has that very niche, you know, background and experience of doing this type of work, because we want to ensure that, you know, when we activate that theater, that it has all the capabilities of a theater. So the way it's going to work is it's actually going to be designed to be scalable, right? We're not going to have the Met Opera House style, you know, sound and light in there, right? We'll have enough electrical draw and all the outlets and whatnot. We'll have a smaller system, but if a group wanted to bring in like a large rock band or something into the Vista, right? They're gonna need more sound, they're gonna want more lighting. So they'd be able to say rent a larger rig from Northern and they'd be able to just plug and play it in there. That way it saves us money and it allows user groups to kind of customize their experience in that theater. You know, another thing is a lot of people don't think about it like the curtains, right? So he's gonna be doing the curtains and all the automated curtains. And actually, when you think of a light rig, it's actually a structure that's above the stage that has to handle, you know, a certain amount of load. You can't just put something willy-nilly and then all of a sudden it fails and, you know, you're killing people. We don't want that. But we wanna make it so it's scalable to where, like I said, someone doing just an acoustic show would be able to use it, all the way to like some huge rock band or a play or whatnot. So we wanna make it, you know, able for everybody to really utilize it, but also a way for us to, you know, save money on all the audio visual and stuff. Cause if we get huge racks of speakers and a crazy light system, who's gonna use it, right? Like, when you think about it, who's gonna use some massive system? We don't need to have some massive system in there. But we need to have the availability, if somebody does wanna book somebody that does wanna bring in one of those big systems, they'll be able to plug and play and it'll be good to go. And that's what we were aiming for. If you have any other questions in regard to the Vista, feel free, I'm here, to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, for questions, let's entertain a motion before discussion.
I'll make the motion to approve the proposal from R. Blaine Consulting LLC in the amount of $58 an hour for a total of $26,548. Those monies being paid from the proceeds of the Vista grant.
Second.
All right, John, any further?
No, I just would say I appreciate your diligence. I'm so glad to see we got a number of bids, and this seems like a good fit for us.
Tracy? Any other questions, comments?
How many hours does this guy figure he's gonna spend on it?
Was it like around 120, and that also included 5 trips. So actually, the other proposal people that I didn't recommend, they were only gonna come up once. And then they were gonna do everything by, you know, Zoom or whatnot. So this guy's actually gonna be fully involved, where some of these other proposals, they were gonna come up once, look at the building, and be like, oh, let me look at the plans, let me review them, here you go, at that rate, right? So this guy's actually gonna come up and be involved with, you know, do a walkthrough, then come up again and work on the plan set with me and Rich. And then when we go to do the installation, he'll be overseeing the installation. I mean, we really I think we got lucky with this guy, right? Because he wants to be involved with the actual whole process instead of just, you know, some high-end consultant that's just gonna look at it, okay, well, it looks like that, and then send me the plans, and I think this, and that. So we'll actually have more flexibility with this guy as well. And the other people, they didn't wanna be involved anything past doing basically a plan review and recommendations. Like, this guy's actually willing to come up and work with us, work with the community. He wants to sit down with the stakeholders, kind of like we did with those public meetings. Yeah, and his resume is quite impressive, so, around like 128 hours. So actually that figure at the 28 also includes travel.
All right, any other comments, questions?
Sounds like you got the best guy for the job, and sounds like he really cares about what's gonna happen, so.
I'm assuming myself that he's going to work with how the seating is arranged, make sure that everybody can hear as far as what acoustics are in there. So as you're sitting here, you're gonna hear better, or I don't know.
Yeah, so how that actually works, so we actually we have basically the seating diagram laid out. It's already laid out, it's basically gonna be set in stone. But really when it comes down to acoustics, it's actually generating an acoustic cloud and dampening. So like when you look at the Vista itself, it's a square box, right? So everything bounces off of there. So he'll actually be involved with putting acoustic dampening materials and kind of figuring out where we can break up the sound. Because when you want good sound in the venue, you don't want flat surfaces, right? You want like a little angulation, and that's where this guy comes in, right? I don't know the exact angulation you need on a surface panel when you're 10 feet from the stage, 20 feet from the stage, 40 feet from the stage, and then the cloud above, right? Like if you've ever been down to the island, where they have their stage and auditorium. When you look up, a lot of people never look up, there's actually acoustic dampening panels all over, like when you look in there, and they're spaced at specific spots. so it actually breaks up the sound and makes it a clear sound. So he'll be involved in all of that as well, which is, really nice, cause again, those other people that sent in proposals didn't want anything really to do with that, and that would have been a fee on top of what they were already proposing.
I have a question for, electrical, are we making sure there's enough amperage for really big setups, really big rigs as, you know, in addition to the small ones?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we have this guy, because he can actually look at what, say, you can rent, because you can rent big systems from Northern, which is actually great for us, right, that somebody is that close. And he can look at all the electrical draw needs for there, so we can have all of the, you know, all the electricity we need in there to run a big system, but we don't, you know, we won't be running a huge system all the time, but we'll have, basically, like I was saying, it'll be plug and play, right? With the biggest system you could rent to Northern, all of the, you know, fuse boxes and all of that will be designed to handle that type of load. But they probably won't be used most of the time, but to have them available, right? Cause what would be the worst thing in the world was, we get this project done, and then somebody brings in a decent sized band, and they have to rent a generator to run their sound and lights on the outside of the building. Nobody wants that. They don't want that, I don't want that, I don't think the public wants that, or the council members want that, so. It's gonna be a process, right, but and truthfully, this was probably gonna be the last consultant we hire. Like, because we have hired, you know, the historic one, the tax credit one, obviously the engineer architect, we need that one. But this will be the last consultant we hire, as we move forward with this project.
Timeframe?
So right now, architect and engineers, you know, working on the building plans, it's a pretty, you know, it's a big project, right? So he's thinking probably around end of May, early June, having DDs ready to submit to the SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office. So since we're doing that tax credit thing, we have to send all of our plan sets down to them to review. They have up to 6 months. They may be shorter, but they have at least up to 6 months. There'll be discussions with them, you know, with everything in regards to both the theater and the annex. What is historic? What can we do? What can't we do? Like all the way to like what type of materials you can use in there and whatnot, because we want to be able to monetize all of the money that we're investing into that theater into the tax credits, right? Because the tax credit money has to be basically okayed by SHPO, and that's the State Historic Preservation Office. So hopefully, after we get through those discussions, I'm thinking, you know, November, put out for bid, let it sit out for till January of 2026, award bid probably in February, and then they'd be able to hit the ground running, and then they'd be in there until the project was done. There'll be some other things that we'll also be working on the back end for, you know, sponsorship stuff if you want, like those nameplates on the seats. I've had some people reach out to me for doing that, you know, sponsoring the elevator, the lobby, but that will all be further down the line, so. Cause per the state grant, we have to be done by 2026, obviously we could ask for an extension, which I'm sure as long as we're making good progress, they'd be fine. But I'd really like to get it done in 2026, even if it's December 31st, 2026, cause 1926 was when was the original opening date, so if we can hit that 100-year, that'd be awesome. But you know, it's a big project, it's not like, and we don't wanna rush it, right? You don't wanna miss something or do something wrong, to where when you do turn that key to open it, something's wrong and you have to get back in there and fix stuff, so. Yeah, good projects take time.
That would be Pioneer Princess in this summer, but. as you know. All right, motion on the floor.
Wait,
go ahead.
is this a contract for $26,548, or are we paying the $58 an hour?
Yeah, he basically recommended that, that we do the 28 as a pure contract.
Oh, I bet he did. Did you figure out, if you got 120 hours, you're looking, what, $6,000 or so worth of $58 an hour?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact amount of hours, but you also have to figure in travel time, lodging, and all of that as well.
Right, that's all hours, man.
Yeah.
That's why I asked how many hours he planned on putting into the project.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, I'd have to have the proposal in front of me, but it was a significant amount.
I see, cool.
All right, with that, we'll take a vote. Not a roll call vote on this one. All right, all in favor? Aye.
I,
Roll call, no, roll call. Aye. No minutes.
Okay.
All right, moving on. 7.4, Board of Review Assessing Document Approval. Back on this one, Dave, when you are.
Yeah, okay. A, poverty exemption. The state of Michigan requires that a local unit of government adopt a standardized application for exemption from property taxes. The local unit must also declare if the federal poverty guidelines will be used by the Board of Review to determine eligibility. The local unit must also declare if partial exemptions are permitted to be granted by the Board of Review. Recommendation: adopt the standard application, utilize the federal poverty guidelines, and allow for partial exemptions. Set the asset test to not exceed $15,000.
Any further background you wanna share?
Mr. Mayor, I don't, but if you have any questions, the city attorney can answer questions related to this.
Let's get a motion on the floor before we do that. Dave, makes a
Adopt
motion.
the standard application, utilize the federal poverty guidelines, and allow for partial exemptions set to an asset test not to exceed $15,000.
I'll second.
And a second. Any further comments, Dave?
Well, we kind of dealt with this last, let's see. Yeah, we're resolution, like, offered by, well, by you, Craig, and then by former Councilman Smith, last February, so it's kind of just going forth with that, recommendation.
Why we do this? We do this annually, I believe it is, so. Amanda, any further comments?
I looked through the application and it looks like it's pretty detailed. My only question was, how are we verifying the assets? I mean, like, you know, it says jewelry, antiques, artwork. I mean, are we gonna have somebody verifying all this stuff?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, sir.
So that's a problem, it's always a problem, because how much, you're trusting that people are gonna report their own income and their own assets, and
Yeah.
you don't wanna spend a lot of money to investigate them. So I don't know, there's not a good answer to that. Again, it's, you're dealing with people that are, hopefully below the poverty level and need this, this exemption.
Mm.
So, but yeah, you should, I don't know how, unless you wanna do some due diligence and, you know, ask them where they do business, and you can get them to sign a release, and you can go and actually get their, bank account balances and stuff like that. You could do that, depending on how far really you or the staff wants to go into it.
The only thing I'll add, Mr. Mayor, is, in talking with the treasurer, this is a seldom used tool, but it is useful, to help people keep their properties. That's all I have to add.
Okay. Any further questions, comments?
It seems like we should have a little more sturdier guideline on, like, what you're gonna do to make sure these assets do or don't exist.
You might wanna
just say,
develop,
well,
yeah.
it depends on how
Yeah.
that one person wants to look into it, or, you know,
Yeah, Matt, you might wanna, develop a policy, an internal policy in the city of how you go about doing that, so you could do that. You as the board, I don't know, maybe you have one, but you could have a policy that when somebody comes in and does those assets, that you can ask them for actual bank statements, so they're not just saying, hey, I have $5,000 in the bank, or $500 in the bank. All right, we wanna see your real bank statements for the last year. So you could set up a policy if you wanted, certainly. We're happy to help you with that.
We could check and see if we already have a policy of them.
You might.
I think there probably would be.
Yeah, again, this is an annual thing. So I don't know, Dave, if you wanna make a note, this, I'm sure this will change, but, right, so, it was offered, so this must be from last year.
Oh,
But it wasn't a resolution a year in advance either, so.
okay, so it needs to be.
Changes, today's date, of course, and
Yeah.
then this will be,
Mr. Mayor, if we discover there is a policy on the books at this point, like I said, this is seldom used. They have to actually set an appointment, fill out an application, there's a lot of standardized things they have to do. We will forward the policies on to the council.
right. And does the state of Michigan have back or oversight on this as well, since they are required, the state's requirement?
I mean, ultimately, they do if they want to, but they don't. It's too in the weeds for them, so they won't. And
Right. And I mean, have to say, in a community like ours, somebody that's filing exemption for less than 15,000, I mean, we're pretty aware of our neighbor, right, so we know who qualifies, essentially. You know, I mean,
I would say
in a
that
sense.
this probably, we're more apt to making that decision locally since it affects our tax dollars
Right.
locally more than it would from the state. It costs more for them to investigate and go through that process probably. So yes, I agree.
All right, any other questions, comments? No. With that, we will take a roll call vote.
Becker,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Floyd,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Ganavati,
Yes.
Ilmanen.
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on, number 8, consent agenda. 8.1, minutes, December 12th, 2024 minutes. 8.2, claims and accounts. 8.3, revenue expenditure trial balance reports.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as
Support.
John supports. All in favor, any, no, we don't have, we don't speak about that, do we? No, not, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 9, public comment. Again, 3-minute public comment. Please stand up to the podium, your name, your address, and the 3 minutes is yours. Public comment, no takers, eh? All right, with that, we'll close public comment. And we'll move on to council comment. Any council comment this evening? I think last month I just kind of opened the floor, but nobody wanted to say anything, so let's, Dave, how about you? You always got something to say.
Well, bummer that when Cayman on is canceled this year. Not enough snow again. Like, I guess we gotta move this thing down to Grand Rapids or something where we got snow actually. But yeah, it's really strange that, so it's another local hit to the economy, but, you know, it is what it is. Old man Winter just isn't cooperating. But, Hikilunta is in, February weekend of the 8th, 9th, 10th, right?
7th, 8th, 9th.
7th, 8th, 9th, I was close. So it looks like we'll have enough snow for that, looks like the rail jam, course can be set up, it's gonna have a lot of different events this year, it's gonna be tied into the Meyer State Games, and kind of getting on our coattails a little bit, so that's pretty cool, so it's gonna make, Hikiluta that much bigger and more attractive for more people to come check out. So it's, really, other than that, that's, well, the only two things I got. What you, Jason?
You already covered them.
Yeah, no, come on. You can say it more eloquently.
I was gonna say, thank you, Luca, you covered it really well.
Amanda, anything tonight?
I just, good job to the city workers for taking care of our sidewalks and everything. I've seen them really busy out there working today, getting snow removed, so. And I did wanna say something about the water, the NEWA water stuff.
So when we speak on a agenda item, we don't roll back to it.
We don't roll
We've
back, okay.
spoke that, we've made our decision,
Okay.
and so we don't roll back to agenda items.
I didn't remember.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries. John, anything?
Ski jumps tomorrow and Saturday. Encourage everybody to show up for it. One of the most wonderful, unique events that happens in our community. And, support the club, support the kids. It's one of the only ski jump training facility in the state. And, so I hope to see all of you out there.
You're good? Matt, what you got?
Well, I found out some interesting things when I looked into the trees at the cemetery we were told about. And I'm surprised nobody else has mentioned that, what went on there. That's it.
Okay. Kevin? Yeah, nothing for you. Not to beat a dead horse, but we do have Hikiluta, and, I'm certainly excited for it. A lot of different little events happening this year, that we're gonna experience, probably a lot of us for the first time. And then the other things, the rail jams and, ice hockey tournaments and stuff like that, it's gonna be an excellent time, so. It's always nice to have a community that can come together both all seasons of the year. I guess Nate and DDA have been putting together some really great opportunities every season, it seems like, so. And that's all I have to say. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor and Council, well, Tinseltown came and went. I know it's been a little while since that event happened, but it was very successful. Talking to a few businesses, it was their highest grossing sales of the year. So that's great to see that happening right now. We hope to build on that event as we move forward in the years to come. Adds additional revenue to our businesses, keeps jobs going, and it's just a great event for the community right before the holidays. A lot of people that stopped me said that it felt like a Hallmark moment to them. So like to hear that. We like to see people come into the community, and I think it went off really well. So. As Councilmember Becker mentioned, we do have our ski jump coming up, and it'd be bad on me if I didn't mention that the ski jump hill is completely within the city of Negaunee. And it is, it's true, it's 100%. I will be out there helping on Friday. Not jumping, I qualify to do that. Might end up somewhere I don't wanna be, but be out there helping direct parking a little bit. Ever since we've forged our relationship a little bit closer with the ski club, things are a lot safer out there. There will be limited parking. They are charging for parking out there, as we know, and they do have a shuttle service. There will be no parking on parts of County Road, and the two-track, or whatever you wanna call that road that runs out there, there will be no parking along that either. We have to be able to get our ambulances or fire trucks or any other safety personnel in that area. So that has been going on for 2 years and has worked out really well. The ski club is extremely happy with that, and we'll just continue to work with our friends, since they are completely within the city limits of Negaunee, in the coming years. And then lastly, as many of you have already mentioned, we do have Hikiluta coming up, the 7th through the 9th. It has ballooned to be a large event now. There are a lot of people involved. Meyer State Games is probably the biggest thing that we can say is a feather in our cap. It's called the Marquette Winter Games, but their opening ceremony is gonna be in Negaunee. So that's a great achievement for us. We'll continue to see if we can forge that relationship as well and hopefully impress them enough where they'll continue to stay within the city of Negaunee. There will be some different road closures in the downtown area, so if you hear anything, you can point them towards Facebook. That's gonna be our best way of communicating besides actually showing up and seeing that the road's closed. We have to make sure people are safe. The events are gonna get kicked off on Friday evening, and then the events will close up sometime Sunday afternoon. So you can look towards forgenegaunee.com, or you can go to the DDA website and look under Hinkie Lumpen Winter Festival, and you can see all the great events that we have lined up for that. Other than that, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Very good, thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
Well, it was a pleasure meeting you all. I knew about half of you, and a pleasure meeting the rest of you. Negaunee City has had a reputation of being one of the finest communities in the UP as long as I've been around, so I think it's all, you guys are making that continue to happen, and you have a nice community here, so we're happy to represent you.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Let's go.